One, check two. Check one, check two. How's everybody doing? Hit a one in the box if you can hear me. Give me a one in the box if you can hear me. Wishing everybody a happy Sunday. Let's make sure everybody can hear me. Let's about to get started. As you see, we're going to talk basics of cryptography. One of the most boring topics, but obviously one of the most important topics. I'm just double checking to make sure I can see it on my phone. Anybody has any questions before we start? Just drop them in the chat and we can talk about them. I'm good if we pivot to something else while we get on to basic cryptography. So if anybody has any questions, shout out to Wilton trying to get it started. Had a little car issues right before this, but we off and running. Oh, that's me looking at myself. So I think we're ready. So let me. So today we're gonna go over basic cryptography or encryption. I'm sure everybody knows what encryption is and kind of what it's about. So we're actually gonna drill down into it. I'm actually gonna look up a quick three-tier architecture from Amazon. It kind of that's my favorite one. Is that it? No, that's not it. We'll find one real quick and we'll just kind of go over it. It's just at a high level. So let's talk a little bit about encryption. I'm dropping the basic going over cryptography. My fault, I gotta hit my neighbor up. We're gonna go over cryptography. We're gonna use this. This is a basic three-tier architectural network that everybody uses. Of course, we're going through the zero trust, which is more security on top of the three-tier. So let's get in there and just talk about encryption as it goes for this architecture. This is on-prem or off-prem, right? We can do either one. So we can do either one. Once again, this is the foundation is really for zero trust. Everybody know Biden put that in the executive order. So we're going to talk about encryption in three-tier. I add a little zero trust on it and add encryption in there also. So let's get at it. Once again, if you got any questions about anything, just drop them in the chat box and we can talk about it, pivot, go to something else. So let's start once again with the three-tier that's on your screen. So we see the internet user down here. You kind of see the shield, but what's on top of that shield before we get to the shield is what? Your browser. Everybody's familiar. We're going to get that when we get into the lecture. If you click on the lock of your browser, right, and we're going to do that once again in the lecture, you're going to talk about three-tier networks and encryption. So your browser is the first level encryption, right? HTTPS, you get the lock. So once again, we're going to drill down in there. If you see there with the 7 and 2 is the load balancer. Maybe I need to be encrypted. Load balancer, right? It's going to be encryption, FIPS 140-2. We'll talk about that once again in the web server. So when your browser gets to the web server, right, it serves up Ciphers, and we'll scan a couple websites to look at encryption from that level of a web server. Give me 1 second. And we'll scan a couple Panera, some other sites. We'll look at the encryption from a standard web server. Once again, application server. We're talking about IIS and Apache and WebLogic, right? So of course, when you go to the application server to handle your code, that's going to be encrypted. That's going to be encrypted when it talks to the web server. And all your code, hopefully, is signed and encrypted to make sure nobody's stealing it. Then we'll talk about encryption on the database. That's usually encryption at rest. So when you save it into Oracle, SQL Server, MySQL, some of the new NoSQL stuff too, those files are saved in the database encrypted, right? So if somebody steals those data files or steal your database, they don't have the master key, right? They cannot get to encryption. What's up? Welcome, Helmet. Helmet. Glad to see you, Savage. Glad you can make it. So when you talk about encryption in database, right, you're usually talking about encryption at rest. So when it saves it actually in the database files and you query it, the actual data files that the data is in is encrypted. So if you're talking about Oracle SQL Server, that's actually called transparency data encryption, TDE, meaning when you save it in the database, it automatically encrypts it and save it to the file system. So if one of those bad actors, China or Russia, steals your database, they don't have the keys, right? They can't read the data. Now we can talk about later on, we can talk about quantum computing, speed of encryption to break it, but just off of saving information to a database, it's going to be saved to the disk file. It's going to be encrypted. So if somebody comes and steal your data or comes by and try to look at that data block, they shouldn't be able to read it, right? Why? Because that data is encrypted. So those are some things we're going to talk about once we get in the slideshow of basic encryption. Why do you need it and why do you have it, right? So from a whole architectural standpoint, there's 3 phases of encryption you always want to deal, right? Encryption in transit, TLS, web server, app server, going to and encryption at rest. When I save it in a database, or if I got raw files and I'm saving to the file system, I actually want to take those files and encrypt it, right? PGP and GPT are one of the most standard things. So if I save files, so like I deal a lot with bank records, checks. So when I send that raw file for to print out the checks, if somebody comes on a disk and try to steal those files, if they don't have the private or master and key, they can't unencrypt it. They cannot encrypt those files, right? So those files will be safe, even though they got stolen. If you don't have the master key, you can't unencrypt it and read those files, right? Especially if you're talking about 2048 length, AES. All right, so you check all the boxes, and once again, we're going to talk about those when we go through the slideshow for introduction to computer security. So, well, let me back up. This introduction to computer security, you can sit for the Security Plus exam with a little additional studying, but that's what this lab is about, walking through and getting familiar with computer security, especially the introduction. Once again, if you have anything, put your questions in the chat and I'll definitely answer them. Wilton, I would like to know how the current messaging can be used for attacks like WhatsApp, Telegraph, Signals, and others. Is it a thorough shared or forward message? That's a good thing. And we'll look at that real quick, Wilton. I'm gonna actually scan Panera's website, and it actually goes through and shows you weak cipher if it has the forwarding or not. So we actually do a quick look at a website and look at the information. I had to create an encryption algorithm. Savage scientists, why would you have to encrypt? Why would you have to create an encryption algorithm? I'm sure that's for school, right? The reason I pause is those are so hard to do if you mess up any section on them. Like Wilton said, we're going to look at the shared and forwarding message. If you mess any of that up, you're toast. So I always tell people the government has approved a lot of encryption algorithms. So never create your own. Okay, shout out. I was for a program for educational or for work. Was that? Cyber Scientists, was that program for education or work? And so we'll do a quick scan to actually look at some ciphers and kind of delve deep before I actually go through the well, once again slideshow. Oh, facts. I would just tell you, man, I use AES 256. I usually quadruple that. I usually use AES 2048. You can use OpenSSL if you're using Linux. That has it built in. If you want open source, GPG is approved. It's actually government certified, meaning the government looked at that algorithm and it's designed appropriately. Because a lot of people can say they're doing AES 256, but like Cyber Scientist says, he could have programmed it wrong. I know he's got impeccable skills and I trust him, but because I think AES is 16 rounds of iterations before you actually come up with your private key, right? So you got to do all that perfectly. Any mistake in that, you can get toast, right? So that's why I always use it. Um, Somebody approved already else that created that algorithm. So I never, once again, create those algorithms. I'm gonna use something that's already approved. And for a lot of you that don't know, a lot of you that don't know me, Professor BlackOps, I do federal compliance. So I work with the IRS, I work with HIPAA. So only certain ciphers and encryption are approved, and those have to be approved by the government. If they're not government approved, we can't use them as an agency, right? Because we'd be in violation of that government oversight, being HIPAA, which is Health and Hospital. I do a lot with the IRS, uh, FISMA for DOD. So if you don't use certain ciphers approved by the government, right, it's called ATO, you won't get authority to operate. So therefore, your program will be rejected. Met the new frontier of tech, strong encryption, data security, AI being control of this can be good and a dangerous thing. AI being in total control, I mean, since they learn faster, should there be a way to keep the AI in check for EG? Oh, yeah. I mean, they actually think they're going to have, we call them guardrails in front of AI. And right, AI is actually at the tip of things. I think more people are going to do more machine learning, right? So when you say AI, when I used to do that in college, right, as a little grad work, you're trying to get a computer to think like a person, right? Become almost, as a person and think, right? I always think of machine learning. I'm telling this machine to turn over this hamburger in this way, right? Even though a computer driving a car, right, is a complex things, but there's factors to it, right? When you look, these are the things. It knows what a stop sign is, right? That's more machine learning, right? I know what a stop sign is. I know there's a car there. I know if I can turn left. I'm communicating with other cars, right, with sensors, so I know how close it is, how quick I can stop, right? That's more machine learning. For me, AI is at the top of the pyramid where you're actually thinking to get a computer to think like a person. And for me, that's kind of rare. I think we're leaning more to machine learning. So yeah, we talked about that. So in that architecture right there, everything has to be encrypted in transit, encrypted at rest, and a big thing that nobody does very often is encrypted in use. So what does that mean? As my program is in memory doing calculations, once I get done with those calculations, right, I need to save those and encrypt those. Because when machines are calculating stuff in memory, you can actually do a memory dump. So if I do a memory dump and you got 1,000 social security numbers in there, right, I can read that memory if I dump it, right? So that's kind of where the in use is now. I want to take one record, do what I need to do, encrypt it, unencrypt it, right, then encrypt it back. So if somebody dumps the memory, they can't see my PII, personal identifiable information, right? So that's the term. Consolidated encryption algorithms are written. I had to write a simple program that encrypts messages with simple, okay, prime factor. Right, Python is hot. That's on my list to learn. I usually do more. My main tool set is in programming is Java, Oracle, and if you're in Java, there's always programs I have to use. I use Hibernate and Spring. So that's kind of my Java stack. I've done Oracle PL SQL, which is backend stuff for 25 years. So that's kind of mostly my security stack. The weird thing is now I usually look at programs and architectures and infrastructure for federal compliance. So to be honest, I don't get to touch computers a lot. I'm actually looking at gobs of paperwork. ATO in the federal government space is authority to operate. That's 1,200 pages. Policies, procedures, architecture designs, what database you're doing, how you're doing patching. So I have to review all that paperwork to make sure it can pass the government audit. So when I'm done, I'm learning R. Yeah, I actually looked at some R code. Actually, I actually reviewed R for security checks. R is kind of weird because it's actually a database, web server, and all that wrapped into one helmet. So R was a little different when I actually did a security review. That security review was probably, oh god, probably 5 years ago. But that's a cool part of my job. I get to look at a lot of technology and try to figure out if it's secure. And the big thing is, will it pass a federal audit? Savage, I also work with memory. Yeah, shout out some Savage knows you got to keep that encrypted or you can see the memory dump. I usually do TCP dump on Linux when I'm actually doing a review. Because when I do a TCP dump, that'll tell me if your data is encrypted or not. Right? Somebody's doing TCP or moving data for me to tell if it's encrypted, meaning I shouldn't be able to read it, right, Savage? I'm gonna do a TCP dump for Linux, and that'll let me know if you're encrypting your data, right? I use volatility framework to search memory dumps for toast notifications. Okay, I've looked at toast notifications for a couple security reviews. I've never used the volatility framework. I usually come up to guys like you and say, "Hey, I need a I need a memory dump so I can see if your stuff encrypted." If you don't mind, what's your job? Are you a SA, system administrator? I'm thinking if you got TCP dump, you looking like volatile stuff. I was gonna go SA, system admin. Let's see. So we talked a little bit about that. So I think I'm gonna hit the slideshow. Unless anybody got any questions, we're gonna kind of go over just some basic cryptography. We're gonna talk about this more of an introduction to cybersecurity. Theoretically, you could study a little bit extra at the end of it and sit for your security plus. Once again, I'm not dictating to my subscribers. Y'all guys was gracious enough to come and hear me pontificate. So throw stuff in the chat you want to talk about. If you want to pivot to something else, I'm up for that too. For y'all that don't know me, I'm Professor Black Ops. I'm actually a professor at a local community college. I actually teach introduction to cybersecurity and forensics. So when you get hacked, we got to figure out what they steal, where it went, and if we got to report it to a federal agency or not. So that's actually my background. I've been in IT for 35 years. I've actually been doing computer security at different levels for 15 years. I've been a DBA, application, Java guy, Oracle guy, and now once again, I look at paperwork at each one of those levels to make sure that we can pass a federal audit. Savage, I work at IBM. I was okay, C sharp. I always get mad at C sharp. Y'all just took the good parts of Java, man, and then y'all just stole them. Java C sharp took the good part of Java and just stole it and ran away with it, man. But I use volatility in my graduate program at LSU and writing my thesis. That's cool. If you need any help with that or you got any questions on your thesis, I'm sure you don't need me, but a lot of people ask me. One guy was trying to figure out what to do for his thesis, so we just kind of went back and forth. I don't have a PhD. I thought about. I work with a lot of guys that are writing different stuff. Like I said, I got Java, memory, federal work, so a lot of stuff they put in their graduate things to add on to their theses. Talk about cybersecurity at a different level, more from theoretical and Washington D.C. cyber type thing, right? My thesis will be titled "Finding Forensic Evidence in a Memory Dump." Okay, for sure. Okay, that's cool. Like I said, I teach forensics at a high level. Talk about dump from a Java perspective, how to protect your memory while your Java is running. So yeah, if you need anything or you want to chop it up, just let me know. I'm here for you. So let's jump into this basic cryptography. Defining cryptography, what it involves, understanding what it is, understanding what it can do, understanding how cryptography can be used as a security tool to protect data. So we looked at the three-tier architecture. We talked the three big places: encryption, encryption at rest, encryption at transit, and encryption at use. Savage is talking about that now. How do you protect your memory and data? Then from a forensics thing, because obviously that's one of the most volatile things in memory, right, in the register is if it runs out of power, right, your memory is gonna go away. And if people keep running programs while the memory is running, at a certain point, their memory is gonna flush out, right? So you got to stay on top of it. That's one of the most volatile things when you do forensic, right? Registers memory. Because if you're out of power or the power goes out, or if the machine keeps running, it's going to push that information out of memory. Right. So what is cryptography? It's going to show up. Cryptography is scrambling information so it cannot be read. That's kind of a weird part. Transfer information into a secure form so unauthorized persons cannot access it, right? So if a person dumps your memory but it's encrypted, an unauthorized person can't read it. Somebody steals your data file of your database, right? If it's encrypted, they cannot read it. So the cool thing about that is if your information gets stolen from a federal compliance standpoint and you can prove that they don't have the keys, right? You don't have to report that data is stolen. Why? The bad guy cannot read it, right? That's what makes encryption good. So I always tell my boss that if somebody steals the database or steal information, if they don't have the key, right, you can tell the CEO we're good. They got the database, but they don't have the key, so they cannot read it right there. So an unauthorized person cannot access it, right? So that's the beauty of encryption. So steganography is what they actually used to do at the turn of the century, but we'll talk about how the existence of data, an image, audio, video file can contain hidden messages embedded in the file, achieved by dividing data and hiding in unused portions of the file, may hide data in the file header fields that describe the data between sections of metadata, data used to describe the contents and structure of the actual data. The weird thing is, I really didn't think that was something that was new, but so I was running late. One of the last guys that was hackers or bad actors was actually putting credit cards in the images of files. It's like there, so you have the image of the Statue of Liberty, but in between those spots, he had the credit cards hidden, right? So when you looked at the picture, and it went out your network, you wouldn't think of anything of it. You would think it was a picture, but it was credit cards embedded in the picture. Right. Savage Side, I used to be in the National Guards. Glad to see more brothers. Like, oh, Tech G is my guy, right? That's my job. And keep it techie doing doing it. I think I appreciate it. Those guys actually got me started to actually do a YouTube channel. So those are, like I said, those are the guys I follow. Shout out to those guys. I'm hoping to do a panel with those guys. But yeah, we're trying to get everybody on board and show the way. This technology, man, it's the bag. You can make a lot of tech money in technology. And we were talking about imposter syndrome, right? Guys getting these jobs and they get nervous or they get promoted. I worked in the Department of Defense. I worked with the IRS. I worked with large state agencies. Most guys in this industry are just average. They're not super smart. They're not brilliant. They're just average. So you can get in here. You can easily make six figures if you put in the work. You get the right certs. Tech G will help you. I'm gonna help you keep it techie. Kenny Congo, Cybersecurity. Those are red team dudes. So there's a ton of guys in here that's gonna help you, man. It's gonna help you get the bag. All of us around six figures. You know, we're not 8% of dudes on the planet. So my job is to help y'all get that bag, man. Like I said, I'm 50 plus, man. My time's about up. I'm trying to help y'all, right? So let's get it. So that's why I came in to do cybersecurity. Everybody knows there's 500,000 jobs that are opening that people are trying to find, that people are trying to apply for. So let's get it. So once again, we're looking at the picture of the Statue of Liberty. Right here is they're hiding where the credit cards will be. So you can hide information in the metadata of pictures to actually steal it, right? Right. So you can actually steal it. So that's one thing I thought because I've been teaching this class for like 8 years. I'm like, I've never seen anybody steal data through a picture, but it was actually one. If you Google it, I think it was like a couple months ago. So actually, people are actually using those techniques. So what is an encryption? Okay, let me read it. Yeah, I learned about Tech G from a guy. Oh yeah, K Business, because K Business is out. Yeah, shout out to K Business. I also have a YouTube channel. I focus on computer science. That's cool. Post your link in there. Let me see. Let's see. Him and I made you a moderator. So yeah, Savage Science, post your link in the description. Everybody's in the network and try to get CNA. My young homie network, bruh, just in the house. I need to go check his channel out. He's always doing those lives. He's live every day. He didn't want. I watched him. I was like, okay, if network bruh can go live, I got to start going live. The old people gonna have to show out. So yeah, yeah, Savage, post your link in the box. Let me make network bruh monitor too. So yeah, yeah, my job is to promote y'all guys, make sure y'all in the mix, make sure everybody's learning. Shout out to Network Bro. He goes live 7 or 8 Monday through Thursday. I'm usually out there giving a stig of the day. I try to jump on his and get a little security information without bothering his channel. So shout out to the guys. I'm encouraging more folks to get inside. Oh yeah, most definitely, Hammond. The next part of this, after I go over the intro classes, 16 classes, I'm actually going to do AWS security in the cloud. How do we take the intro, move it up into the cloud? Because the cloud is the next big bag, right? Everybody's moving to the cloud, government going to the cloud, so the cloud is it. So what is cybersecurity? Encryption, change original text in a secret message in a cryptography. Decrypting, changing secret messages back to the original form. Right, plain text, unencrypted data to be encrypted or input-output of decryption. Cipher, the scrambled and unreadable output of encryption. Clear text data, data stored in transmission without encryption. Right, so that's what it is, right? And we're going to show a little slide going and coming with that. So let's see. Shout out everybody go join Savage Network, bro. Gonna put your link in there. I made you a mod. So yeah, so I'm gonna definitely come out and sub to y'all. So I'll be jumping. I'm gonna jump on your Savage. I'm gonna be like, hey, we gotta get some security in there. So what is cryptography part 4? Plain text data input is cryptographical algorithm, also called a cipher, consists of procedures based on mathematical formulas used to encrypt and decrypt data. A key of mathematical value into the algorithms produce ciphertext, reverse the process of key to decrypt. Substitute one character, type ROT13, which enable alphabet rotation of 13. XOR cipher based on a binary operation of exclusive or compares to the bits. So the part about me being on YouTube is I'm gonna tell you the real part of encryption. Encryption is a great thing. Encryption is probably the cornerstone of the internet. When you use encryption, I use encryption products. I know it's AES. I know it's 2048 bits. Everything else, I'm gonna use PGP, GPG. I'm gonna use Oracle or SQL Server. Why? Those products been opened up by the government, so I know they're doing encryption correctly, right? I have to implement it, but I don't need to know every little bit of the 16 rounds and the pre key and the phase key and how did you get the key offline and is it symmetrical, asymmetrical, right? The programs I use take care of all that for me, right? So on the real world thing, but to take the test, you need to know. But in real life, right? I just use the programs, and I know the programs are certified by the government, right? Oh, that's cool, Savage. I think Network Bro out there. I need to get on Twitter, man. I'm old. I ain't been messing with the Twitter yet. Whatever you want to post is cool. All the young guys, y'all on everything, man. I'm barely on Facebook and YouTube, man. I'm trying to get through there, so I'm trying to make it, man. So on the thing, so when I go out to companies and I validate their security, I don't open up the encryption and like, oh, right. I said, okay, they're using Oracle security module. I can look up on a government website that Oracle security module has passed that. My homie Network Bro, Cisco's got all the government modules. It's got the FIPS, all that. Cisco's about that government life and that government money, right? So I know Cisco's, if they're using a Cisco product, right? Now I just got to check with Network Bro to make sure it's configured right. You know, the domains are set up right. We're using keys for encryption, right? I know Cisco has all that technology, all those modules. I got to make sure they're using the proper module, right? So it can pass federal stuff. So network, but yep, stick of the day from Professor Black Ops are informative how federal agencies are failing compliance. The facts, man. I did the video on that, man. I'm still confused. Long story short, the federal government was just reviewed by Homeland Security. That's the agency that's in charge of securing all the agencies. Uh, the top big agencies actually just got a C minus. A lot of agencies actually got D's that were in the government. But hey, that's more jobs for us, more jobs for the people, more jobs. You know, they need skilled people out there. It's almost unbelievable that we're failing cybersecurity as a country. What's up, AO? I'm glad you came. Is Proton VPN good? I would have to do a little research on that. Usually I just go to Google, I would type Proton VPN, then I would type space CVE. That stands for critical vulnerability exposure. So if the CVE comes up for Proton, just see what version it is and see what time it is and see if they fixed it. So if you do your product space CVE in Google, that'll tell you if there's any known hacks or vulnerabilities for that particular product. So let's look at once again. Savage 43, dude, I got you by 12 years, man. My son 35, man. But well, we're never too late though. The cool thing about cybersecurity, the pluses and minuses about technology, right? Once you get in and you get a skill, you can ride it out for 10 years. But every 10 years, you got to come up with a new skill. Like the cloud is high. Savage know. You know what a BlackBerry phone is. BlackBerry was hot in the 2000s. Now BlackBerry programmers, dude, they can't find a job. Power Builder. There's so many tools that came and went out here. You know, it's crazy. So you just got to stay up on your skill set, your tools. The cloud's a new bag. Savage last, he know BlackBerry is hot, but now hell, you can't find a BlackBerry phone. So, but that's the cool thing though is if you jump on the newest hot skill, like if you get the AWS Architect, man, them dudes are getting paid. Cisco CNA network, bro. No, once you get one of them top certs, dude, them dudes are just printing money, right? So but you got to stay hot, and Savage to tell you this. I learned quicker in my 20s. I learned a little slower in my 30s. 40s, I'm struggling. 50s, woo, I'm, I'm like really struggling. Savage, Linux is hot. My only issue with Linux, and that's my operating system of choice, is with the cloud, I can just spin up a Linux SIG box, Red Hat, or actually I'm looking at AWS Linux point 2 is it does all the infrastructure for me. They gonna patch it. They gonna do all that for me. I just need to spin it up. So I need to put my code on it when I put my Java on it, when I put my Apache server on it. But me administration of Linux, I think each year it's gonna get less and less. Right? I love Linux. I think it's hot, but I think when you spin it up in the cloud, I'm gonna pay Amazon to do my Linux administration. Right? I'm gonna spin up my Linux as infrastructure as code, and they're gonna handle all that for me. Right? They're gonna make it a cluster. If one part of the cluster go down, it's gonna spin up on Linux. So it's hot, but I think you're gonna need to move up the pyramid a little farther. What does that mean right there? You need to figure out how to do Linux as a service now. I need to be able to spin up 100 with a click, right? I think the cloud is going to take over a lot of that. Now don't get me wrong. Don't keep it taking over here to beat me up. I just think you're going to need less of them. I'm not saying it's not going to be hot. I just think with AWS and Azure and Rackspace and Google, you're gonna hit a button, and to be honest, you're not gonna even you're not gonna care. It's gonna say Linux. You really don't care if it's Red Hat, Ubuntu, Amazon Linux, right? Because from a Linux operating system, BI, LS, all that stuff's gonna be the same across those operating systems. So, oh, facts, Savage. Linux place would always be networking. Facts. But once again, when you look at VPC inside AWS, right? Networking's made a little easier, right? They put abstraction over VPC. So when I set up my VPC and my 3-tier and my CIDR and how my network traffic control move, I just need probably a couple guys to do that, right? Then we're gonna have the code. We can spin up that same architecture 400 times, right? So if you look on the screen, we're gonna walk through the plain text. So that's the plain text as a message. It's going through the encryption key algorithm, right? That's the key. That's the cipher. Once you take the plain text, it shows you the cipher. The cipher gets transmitted to the remote user. The remote user has the same key. So I think this is a metric. Then they unencrypt that cipher. You get the message, right? So if somebody steals one of the cipher text, right, you're good. They can't read it without the key. Right, so that's what encryption is so good about. And the first thing you think about that is what? For email. How do I move an email? How is email encrypted? Right, so when you look at that, that's really email. But those plain text files, they could be bank files, social security files. I mean, any files with PII or secret stuff you don't want to write goes across with it. And long as you steal a cipher, you don't have the key, you wouldn't be able to read it. Yep, 100% correct. So yeah, so I just want to make sure we're moving in the right direction. What's going to be hot? What jobs are going to reduce? And what's the next level of skills you need to get the bag, to get paid, to make sure you're relevant. The cool thing though is once again there's 500,000 jobs. The government's not securing itself very well, so obviously there's a lot of opportunities. And two is like some of my subscribers put on. I did a couple interviews. Is why are the gatekeepers stopping people from moving into cybersecurity, right? If you can hire somebody, right, are you saying they need a degree, cert? So what do we need to do to get the gatekeepers to stop blocking the gate, right, to let people in, right? And one of that's what we're doing today is when you lab and study your craft, right, and you get known, it's hard to keep you out, right, because you'll be known as a SME, subject matter expert, in what you want to do, right? Cybersecurity, Linux, admin, databases, federal compliance. I'm actually interviewing a PM project manager, right? She's not super technical, but she's on a project. She lays out the schedule, makes sure all the executive sign off, executive budget, make sure we got money, right? All that's in cybersecurity, but she's not technical. She's running the project, right? Project management. You get that PMP, those people make $100,000, right? So I'm interviewing, I think, Wednesday at 1 Eastern time, right? So those are some jobs that are not technical that make six figures, but are in the cybersecurity and the IT area, right? So there's a ton of ways to make it. So what is cybersecurity? This is the old substitution method. At the top, you see A is 1, Z is 26. An example, security, you see it, 1956. But the ROT13 is the substitution, right? So when you see A and N is going to substitute, right? So the example, security, so the result of that is FRPHGL, right? So when you XOR it, right? It comes out of security as an end. So that was the old way you used to do encryption in the Roman wars, right? You would substitute it, you would actually roll it up. If you actually, a lot of people don't realize, if you actually look at my avatar, it's actually the substitution project of a wood spool, and in that spool, you see where that ROT13 is. The spool will let you replace that with leather for your alphabet. So a lot of people don't realize that's actually my avatar from an old person encryption, right? So so that's old school encryption. So if you look at if you want to know what my avatar is, that's really what it is behind the scenes. I see that shift cipher facts. So yeah, so that's old school right there, right? But if you actually look at my avatar, that was it with actually leather spun around with it in the Roman war. I need to put my face on that so old. So that's history for the guys today, right? That's history, spindle. So there's a ton of ways to prosper in cybersecurity. So I thought I would do introduction to cybersecurity live, bring people in. I obviously can work on a replay. I'm actually going to start doing labs like my man Network Bruh. He got me motivated to get my lab game up. So I'm going to start doing labs like for Wireshark and different stuff um, actually live. So what is this? 7 to 7. Modern cryptography algorithms rely on underlying mathematics, depending on the quality of random numbers, non-identifiable pattern or sequence. Right? Software relies on pseudo number generator. So I always remember there's no perfect number you can pull out the sky, right? If a computer's doing it, there's an algorithm behind it, right? An algorithm is creating a sequence of numbers to properly approximate those of a random number. So there's really no random number, right? If you get it from the computer is generating it somehow behind the scenes, right? If you know it specifically, you probably could replicate it. Super hard though, super hard. Two factors that can thwart threat actors from discovering underlying key to cryptography algorithm. Diffusion, if a single character plaintext is changed, then it should result in multiple characters in cipher changing. Confusion, the key does not relate in a simple way to the cipher text. Right. So those are things you do. How do you get a random number generator? How do you hide the generator? Right. And how do you create a random number? So once again, if you got anything in the chat, we'll go over it. We'll just keep moving forward. Cryptography and security. Cryptography can provide 5 basic protections. So when you do cryptography, you're getting 5 basic things, depending on, of course, the cryptography you're doing. Right. Confidentiality ensures only authorized parties can view it. Integrity ensures information is correct and unaltered. Authentication ensures senders can be verified through cryptography. My favorite one, non-repudiation, proves that a user performed an action. Right. So when you electronically sign a contract, non-repudiation means I know you signed it and you cannot say you didn't sign it. Right. So how do you get non-repudiation? Proves that a user performed a certain action. Usually when you sign a digital contract. Ossification. Oh, I'm struck. Making something obscure unclear. Security through obscurity, and an approach to security with virtually any system can be made secure as long as an outsider is unaware of it or how it functions. That is incorrect. You cannot use obscurity for security. The reason why is hackers are too smart, technology is too smart. I'll figure out that system or figure out where you're trying to hide or figure out how try to do the substitution, right? That's almost obscure, right? So, savage scientists, college textbook authors, and expert on that math is not. So that is a great question. So I'm gonna turn that into question time. So do you need a ton of math to do IT or cybersecurity? I'm gonna answer this pretty emphatic and pretty. So there's no obscurity in there. The answer is no. The reason why is I've been doing IT for 35 years. I've been doing cybersecurity for 12 to 15. I'm old, so when I took my college degree, I had to take calculus 2. I can take the area of a tornado. In my whole career, I've never had to use any of those skills. Most, I used to work for an insurance company, which is, I work with actuaries. Actuaries calculate what is it like for you to get hurt, or what is the calculation when you can die? So how much money do we need to collect from you? Any program I wrote for them, they gave me the algorithm for the calculation. Right? They said, okay, do this, do that, take this field, do this factorial, do that, blah, 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 do this, do that. I didn't come up with that. The SME, subject matter expert of the business, always gave me the math calculations. Well, I mean, now granted, it made it a little easier because I was used to seeing complicated math formulas, right? I've done them, right, because I've taken calculus too. But for me to know them, like you said, in the college textbook, especially the math part, I've never used any high level math. that I had to come up with myself. Like I've done some complicated stuff, but once again, the SME of the business gave that to me, right? That's their job, right? They're gonna teach you, well, they're gonna help, they're gonna show you what they want you to program in their business, right? So they gave me the formula. Then when we ran the scenarios and test them, they look at the output of the program to make sure it's right. Right now, there's some stuff I have to do. Right, where did I get the data set? How do I get the data set in a database? What's the best way to move a billion rows to do the calculation? Right, that's not his job. Right, that's my job. Performance tuning of a program is the programmer's job. Getting the algorithm from calculations is the SME's job. Be that actuarial, insurance, business. I've done a lot of stuff. Acquire land, whatever those calculations is, right? The business gave me those calculations. I didn't come up with those calculations myself, right? So let's look, once again, computer science. We're going to talk about the 5 things encryption gives you. Confidentiality ensures that only authorized parties can view the information. Protection, encrypted information can only be viewed by those who have been provided the key, right? Integrity ensures that information is correct and non-authorized person or malicious software is after the data. Encrypted information cannot be changed except by authorized users who have the key. Right. Authentications provides proof of genuineness of the person. Protection, proof that the sender was legitimate and not an imposter can be obtained. Right. Non-repudiation proves that the user performed an action. Individuals are prevented from fraudulently denying that they were involved in the transaction. Obfuscation makes something obscure or unclear by hiding the details of the original cannot be determined. Right? So when you use encryption, depending on encryption, those are the 5 things you get with encryption. Right? Okay. Cyber, you may need math for subnetting. That's true. Once again, I've done, I've set up plenty of networks in my time for small businesses. I just do 255, 255, 255, 0. Why? I get I get all the subnets I want and I don't have to calculate. Right? So I mean, so maybe the most math in IT is basic arithmetic, facts, computer graphics, AI, or math. But that is true. That now you got me on that one, Seth. But let's roll that back though. Once again, is how many people program computer graphics? Once again, that's a program you just used. And true, if you're an AI, depending on which part of AI you're doing, because a lot of times, even in AI, they give you the method to use inside AI to make that easier. So, and I agree with you. You named 2 of the most highly complicated pieces of technologies or what I want to say, parts of business in computer security or IT. Computer graphics is super rare, right? People just buy the graphic card and use them. In AI, I loved AI and I did that in college. How many people on the planet doing AI? 0.001%. But I know if you're in that business, you got to do it now, Savage. I'm not saying you don't need it. Those are super rare. Those businesses, you definitely have to be math savvy, 100%. Summarize me what I'm learning in phases of data analytics. Confidentiality. Oh yeah, facts. If you're in data analytics, especially cybersecurity is coming up a lot in data analytics. The reason why is you have all the good information, right? A lot of times, data analytics will save in data and programs and test files just on their PC. I'm like, dude, you can't have people SSNs and personal identifiable information on your PC. So no, 100% data analytics. So people can use facts on the calculator. Oh, facts, Savage. If you're going through a subnet, definitely. If you're into networking, especially Cisco, Juniper, and the big guys, you definitely need to know how to subnet by hand. I agree with that. But let's think about that. I worked at big companies, probably only what the architects gonna subnet. They're gonna tell all the junior and middle level people what the subnet is. Because once you get the subnet set, you're never gonna change it. I worked at Fortune 500 Fortune 500 companies spending stuff on their subnet, they very rarely change it because especially once you get subnet set up in production, those things very rarely change. But granted, you do need math for that, and I shout out to you. If you can do subnetting by hand and you're going to a Cisco interview, and especially if you're going for a high-level Cisco job, definitely you have to subnet you're going to need to know how to do that by hand. Facts on that side. So yeah, I think we all agree with that. But once again, I think that's a super niche, especially if you're in Cisco, you in networking, especially trying to get one of the high level certs, you definitely got to know how to subnet. But like I said, once again, I've been in the game for 35 years. I've worked with a ton of networks. The network team and network, they have all that set up. So when I went in as a application and a web server admin, I just spin up my Red Hat Linux boxes. I knew what subnet they were going to be on. I didn't have to calculate; it was already calculated. I said, okay, these are 3-tier. This is our web server subnet. This is our application subnet. This is our database subnet. So 9 times out of 10, they're going to usually give you that information. I don't have to calculate. But correct, if I'm trying to be a network guru or a network, the cool thing with my background is I've done enough of everything, so I kind of got a background of everything. So when I do cybersecurity and I review stuff for federal stuff, I understand what a subnet is. I understand what subnetting is. I understand what what a VLAN is, what a forest is. How does that stuff relate to each other, right? What kind of traffic do you need to send across your forest and subnet so it won't be hacked, right? So all that's in there. 100% need to know. That's not true. I'm going to interview a guy who has got the top hacking cert. I promise you don't know how to subnet. He had to hack. I want to say 20 VMs in 2 days, and they had a camera on him. I asked him about it. He don't know how to subnet because the reason why is most of the time when you hack, the subnet's set up. When I think he's an OSCP. I'm supposed to have him on probably in a couple of weeks. Well, long story short, we're going back and first. He actually wants me to do a presentation for his cybersecurity Midwest group. So I'm debating if I want to do that. So he said if I do that presentation for him, he'll come on my channel. But he's one of the top guys, and he actually set up for this big insurance company. He set up a red team to actually attack it from an internal standpoint. They actually got hacked and got fined, so they actually have to set up something super special to test their whole infrastructure. I think it is OSCP. I might have to double check on that, Savage, though. But once again, cryptography and security, that's what we were talking about earlier. Cryptography can provide protection to data as the data resides in any of these 3 states. Data in use, data action being performed by endpoint devices. Data in transit, action that transmits the data across the network. Data at rest, data stored in electronic media, right? So those are the 3 places you're trying to get encryption at to protect your network. By the way, you're right about a person I used to think I couldn't do to a lot of things and that otherwise better said. Facts. There you go, man. And 2 is, like you said, and Savage said, Keep It Techie, Tech G, me, Gabe A, Kenny Conjo, Alpha Cybersecurity, Person Center Cyber. I ain't even really got on Twitter. I mean, there's so many people out there that'll help you, and you drop a question to anything from imposter syndrome to how to subnet. Right? There's so many people out there that'll help you do that. Shout out, I'm sure Network Bro was busy, but he does subnet on his channel because he actually goes through the Cisco CNA labs because I think he's going through the second level cert. So there's so many people out there that can help you. Help me do the work, get it done. Facts. Subnetting for IP4 6 are going to get easy with all facts. I agree with that, Wilson, and I think the automation. And once again, I think a high-level architect's going to set it up, have it set up, then you hit the button, then it's going to spin up your architecture like we talked about, your 3-tier, 4-tier, people in federal zero trust network to stop your east and west traffic. Right, all that's going to get easier. Used to check out a lot of the crypto ciphers 16 cents. Oh, yeah. That's what it is. If you look at my avatar, that's what it is, bro. Need to be able to pivot, not necessarily keep up with every trend. Oh, no, you're right, Network Bro. And let me reiterate that. to get paid, you need to be very good and an expert level at what you're gonna be. Right? Network Bros, the CNA man, he's the Cisco guy, he's working on his craft. Like you said, you can't keep jumping around. Right? You need to do something for a couple years so you can get super good. It's like the NFL, right? Especially you get paid. Quarterbacks get paid, wide receivers, defensive end, right? Everybody don't get paid in the NFL, right? It's the specialty guys. The dude with, you know, Superman like athletic ability, right? So what is that guy in IT? Are you a SME at your craft? Right? Are you Cisco guy? You need to be a SME at your craft. Right? If you're a Red Hat guy and you want to be a Linux guy, you need to be a SME at your craft, right? Facts, Savage. But like you said, to be good at your craft, and IT is just so deep, right? So you just need to be a SME at your craft. Now, once you get that craft figured out, like network, bro, then you can move on to something else. But if you're marginal at your skill and your craft, you can get paid marginally, right? Guys that make big money, right? So guys I try to bring on my channel, I want or like 3 or 4, been in the game for 15 years. They've been architecting, right? So they get paid crazy amount of money. But like Network Bro said, is you can't jump around. You got to be a craft. And two is you got to roll your sleeves up and grind. You got to lab every day. You got to work with people. You got to take classes. You got to get those certs. It's a myriad, a plethora, a ton of ways to get good at your craft. Right. The cool thing is it's cheap as hell to spin up a VM and go to work. That's the cool thing. It's cheap as hell. I watch Network Bro. He got hardware, then he got the other seeing things you can just spin up on your virtually, right? You can do virtual Cisco labs now. You don't have to actually have the hardware. There's a lot of stuff you can spin up virtually and get to work, right? That's the beautiful thing about it. There's so many ways to do it. There's so many ways to work on your craft. There's so many certs to get. There's so many study things. You can go to Udemy and get, a $10 class to kind of get you on the right path. And once again, you can jump on Twitter now and keep rolling, right? So there's a ton of ways to do it. Savage with misconfigured DHCP can explain. Oh, most definitely. DHCP. Oh my God, yeah. I'm a static IP guy, but yeah, DHCP. Even with static, you can misconfigure where, yeah. DHCP, yeah, you get that wrong, you tough. Because you can open up your whole network to the internet on accident. I've seen that where people didn't realize what they had open in their actual on-prem, so they actually had their database open to the network, right? So if your database open in the network, it's super easy for a hacker to just get on there and just steal your whole database. So, cryptography constraints. The number of small electronic devices, lower power, has grown significantly. These devices need to be protected from threat actors. Applications that require extremely fast responses also face cryptography limitations. Resources versus security constraints. A limitation in providing strong cryptography due to a tug of war to provide available resource, time, and energy, and the security provided by cryptography. It's important that there be a high resilience in cryptography, the ability to quickly recover from these resources and security constraints. So there's always a tug of war between security in the business and security in the thing you're working with, right? So if you're dealing with IoT, uh, Internet of Things, and how they connect, a lot of times when you do encryption, right, it's heavy, mathematician, needs a lot of power, right? So that's kind of the triad right there for that: resources versus security constraint, right? Energy, low power, strong security, low latency, right? So those three, when you have one high, the other three are gonna be low. Like playing a video game. You can't be super strong and fast at the same time, right? So how does that work? But two is technology getting better. A lot of times when you talk about servers and you're talking about security and encryption, actually now they have encryption chips to just do the encryption part, right? Usually it's one chip, so it would do the encryption, the math when you program. Now you can have separate cores, and one of those cores could be pure mathematics, just handling your encryption mathematics, right? So it doesn't slow down your system, aware in your system, right? It has its own um, chip to handle those type of operations. So that's part of one of the beauty of it too. Let's see. Yeah, you don't really have to understand subnet, just the risk. Like, oh, facts. And two is I probably studied for the CISP. Yeah, when you talk CISP is actually a management test. CISP really deals with risk, right? Because when you're a manager, you care about DHCP, but your manager's gonna roll that up, right? You carry what risk is that DHCP opening up my server to, right? If I'm running an older Windows version, Windows 7, and there's security holes in it and vulnerabilities, what are my compensating controls? Where is it at in my infrastructure? What is the risk of me not patching that, right? So when you talk about CISP, so I was 100% right. That's actually a management test, right? It will help me understand the easy subnet. That way I understand quick the security. Yes, is it worse? And have the easy subnet. That way I understood it quick. The security, yes, is worse. Facts. Let's talk about some of the algorithms. A fundamental difference in cryptography algorithms is the amount of data processed at the time. String cipher takes one character and replaces it with another. Block cipher manipulates an entire block of plain text at one time. Sponge function takes an input of strings of any length and returns strings requested at a variable length. Right, so those are the different types of ways you can process cryptography, right? String, block, ciphers, and spun function. Three categories of cryptographical hash algorithm, symmetric and asymmetric cryptographical algorithms, right? Those are three types of encryption, right? Sure that we're gonna go through more, but those are the top encryption ones out there. Let's talk about the hash. Creates a unique digital fingerprint of the data and is commonly called hashing. The fingerprint, called a digest, sometimes called a message digest or hash, represents a contact. The contents cannot be used to reverse original hash dataset. It's primarily used for comparison purposes. Hashing is tended to be one way, and its digest cannot be reversed to reveal the original dataset. Right. So that's one of the forms of cryptography is hashing. Right. And we're going to talk later about what is it used for. Securing hashing algorithms and its characteristics, fixed size. Short and long data sets have the same size hash. Unique, two different sets cannot produce the same hash. That's kind of not true. It's called collisioning, but we're going to talk about that later. Original, a data set cannot be created to have a predefined hash. Secure, resulting hashes cannot be reversed to determine original plain text. Right? So hashing is often used to check to verify the original content source of an item that has not been changed. Right? So we talk about Kali Linux. So when you download it and install it and hash it, right, that's the value of Kali to make sure nobody has messed with that or inject anything like that too. Right? So you're not trying to unencrypt it for it to recali. You just want to make sure nobody's changed that Kali program, right? That's what the hashing is doing. So what are some of the known hashing functions out there? Message digest 5, MD5, most well-known hashing algorithms. Length is 512. Weaknesses, compression can lead to collisions. Some security experts recommending using a more secure hash. SHA, secure hash algorithm, more secure than MD. Message digest. SHA-2 is currently considered to be the secure hash. SHA-3 was announced as a new standard in 2015 and may be suitable for lower power devices. Right, so we're trying to get encryption to run in all those devices. REP-EMD, Race Integrity Primitive Evaluation Message Digest. So if you're taking CISP or the Security Plus, You're going to need to memorize this. The primary design features two different independent parallel chains of computation. The results are combined in the end. Several versions of rep MPMD 128, 256, and 320. Of course, the longer the key, the more secure it is. Last message, HMAC. I call it HMAC. Hash variation provided by improved security. Use a shared secret key possessed by the sender and receiver. Receivers use the key to decrypt the hash. Right. So I use a lot of times if you're doing web service calls, a lot of people use the HMAC, but it's definitely used out there in the wild. We call it the wild. Let me make sure. Okay, so symmetric cryptographic algorithm uses the same single key to decrypt and encrypt and decrypt the document. Original cryptographic algorithm was symmetrical, also called private key. Cryptography, the key is kept private between the sender and receiver. Common algorithms include data encryption standard DES, triple data encryption, advanced encryption standard, and several other algorithms. Right, it's part of the symmetrical. So we're going to walk through one of the symmetricals. Let's see. Hey, I want to get A plus network and security plus by the end of the year. By the way, Professor, do you have files that we can download for this lesson? I will make that happen, AO. I will get some files out there and make that happen. I definitely got the slides, so I will definitely get. And I'm gonna start going through some labs, and you'll be able to replay those labs when I do them online. But I will definitely get some slides out there to you. So we talk about symmetrical cryptographic algorithm. You see the plain text by Bob. You see the key, the encryption algorithm. That's the key number. Then you look at the cipher. Then when you decrypt using a decryption key, Allison can read, I always say email, can read the file that Bob sent. The thing that makes it asymmetrical, right, is the key is the same. That's the same key to encrypt and decrypt, right? So that's the. So once again, symmetrical data encryption based on a product originally designed. It was designed in the 1970s. It was only 56 key block cipher. That was DES. The triple DES came in to replace that. He used 3 rounds of encryption. Ciphertext the first round become input for the second iteration. Most secure versions use different keys for different rounds. Right. So that's kind of huge. So once again, we'll go through the scenario with them using 3 different keys for triple DES, but that's a lot of keys to keep track of in real life. So if you look at the top, you got the plain text. Then encryption 1 is a different key. Encryption 2 is a different key. And encryption 3 is a different key. And every time you use a different key, right, the ciphertext, even though that's already encrypted, becomes something else, right? So then you have to decrypt those in that same way with those same keys, right, to be able to read that file. So right, so that makes it super harder for the become a bad actor to get in there and attack it and read those keys. So some of the symmetric algorithms, AES, done by NIST in 2000. It's 128 bits. Other algorithms that are symmetric are Riff, says Cipher, Blowfish, and Idea, right? Those are all symmetric using encryption. Right? So what is the weaknesses of using asymmetrical keys? Distributing and maintaining a secure single key among multiple users. Distributed geographically is hard, right? So how do I get that key to you? How do I move those keys to you, right? So if I see the key and somebody steals it, right, they can be able to decrypt it, right? So asymmetrical, also known as public key cryptography, use 2 mathematical related keys. Public keys available to everyone and freely distributed. Private keys known only to the individual to whom it belongs. So right. So asymmetrical means we're not using the same key. I can make my public key for you an encryption, right? That can be public. So, because you can't encrypt it, I don't care. People can encrypt files. If I don't want to decrypt it, I don't care, right? So that's why I can send you a public key. So that's the benefit of it, right? So I don't have to make it. So here you see the plain text once again of Bob. We take Alice's public key to encrypt it. We got the cipher. Then we use Alice's private key, which is different than her public key. Then when she uses her private key, we can just decrypt it and read the message, right? So that's the beauty of it. I don't I don't have to be super safe with the public key, right? As long as I have the private key, I'm good, right? That's what I have to be to protect. The cool thing is though, I don't have to send it anywhere. I already have it, so I can lock that down. I can put that into a Linux personal user, right? I've locked it down. Only one user can get to that key. Only one user should have access to that key, so I can really secure it. So asymmetrical, important principles, key pairs, public key, private key, both directions. Keys can work in both directions. They can, but we usually don't use them that way. Common asymmetrical algorithms, RSA, elliptical curve cryptography, digital signature algorithm, those relating to the keys. So once again, from the asymmetrical side, we got RSA. It was published in 1977 and patented by MIT in 1983. The elliptical curve, you share one elliptical curve, 1 point. That's actually used on phone and mobile devices. So that shows you it. So a lot of times when you do your patterns to get in your phone behind the scenes, it's doing this algorithm. So you can see it, right? So you can move it, right? So when you do that pattern, that behind the scenes, that's actually what's happening. So let's see. Those are great slides. I appreciate it. Use the receipt private key to send it. Facts, Savage, facts. Yep. Well, AO, good luck. I would like Security Plus. Facts. Let's all get them certs. So asymmetrical, the digital signature algorithm, DSA, digital signature and electronic verification, verifies the sender, prevents the sender from disowning the messages, improves the message integrity, right? So that's when you start using all your hashing algorithms to make sure the person who it is, what it is, and to make sure nobody changed the message in the middle, right? So we're going to go through that. You see it on the screen. Bob sends plain text. We take the hashing algorithm. Now we got the digest of the hash, right? So now we know if somebody actually changed that message or do anything to the message, right? We know the message was changed, right? Because that digest won't match, right? Then you take the asymmetrical Bob's private key. You take the plain text. You encrypt it. So now you got the digital signature of the encryption. You transmit it to the asymmetrical key, the confidential memo. So now you got the digital signature. Now you compare it to the digest of the unencrypted message. So now you know it's encrypted, you know nobody changed it, and you know the person who sent the message is that person. So behind the scenes, when you talk about Office 365 and what it does, what Office 365 on encryption, it does that behind the scenes, right? When you send encrypted messages in Office 365. There's a lot of other stuff, but at the top level of what Office 365 does, that's it, right? That's a huge part of what it's doing behind the scenes. So key exchange, there are different solutions for key exchange that occurs with normal communications. They call it N-band, Delphi-Hillman ephemeral, elliptic curve, and perfect forward secrecy. I think somebody asked me up in there, so we're going to touch on the perfect forward secrecy. All right. Several of the more common cryptographical attacks includes target algorithm weakness and exploit collisions. Right? Other algorithms attack, known cipher attacks, downgrade ciphers, using decrypted algorithms, right? Taking advantage of improperly implemented algorithms. So when we talk about FIPS 140-2, the government looks at your algorithms to make sure it's not deprecated and you implemented it properly, right? So when you talk about federal compliance, encryption, as from a security analyst, what I look for, those last two, that's why you want that encryption to be FIPS certified by the government, right? But in a real world question too, they're like, okay, when the government open up my cipher, are they figuring out how to decrypt it if I didn't do it right? Right. So there's some minor issues, but from the overall intent, right, the government's going to let you know if that cipher is good or not. Known cipher attacks, statistical tools can be used to attempt to discover a pattern in the ciphertext, which can be used to reveal the plain text of the key, underlying language of the plain text, distribution of characters, null ciphers, and management frames. Right. So those are different ways you can attack ciphers to figuring out how do you guess how it's actually implementing that cipher. Right. So we're going to actually touch on them real quick. Downgrade. A threat actor forces the system to abandon the current high security mode of operations and install a fallback to implement an older and less secure mode. So when you actually hook your browser up to a web server, there's multiple ciphers out there. It's going to keep going through those ciphers until it finds one that can connect. So if I take all the most secure ciphers out of my browser, if I put a non-secure cipher in there and it's on your web server, it'll connect. And if that cipher's been hacked, that's a way I can actually attack your server. Right? And we actually, at the end of the session, real quick, we're actually going to do a qualsys scan of probably Panera Bread's website. And it's going to actually walk through all the ciphers. You're going to see the handshake. You're going to see all the browsers that you use to check those ciphers on that website. Using deprecated algorithm means as cryptographic algorithms should not be used because of known vulnerabilities. Most times when your algorithm is deprecated, meaning somebody's hacking it, right? There's vulnerabilities. Improper implementation, known as misconfiguration implementation. Many cryptographic algorithms have several configuration options. Unless careful consideration is given to these options, crypto may be improperly implemented. Right? So that's one thing a lot of people want to go to the cloud for. So when I spin up Amazon, Azure, or Google resource, especially if it's a service, they're going to make sure it's configured properly. Right, especially if it's FedRAMP or NIST approved. That, long story short, that means it's government approved. Those services have been approved by the government, and Amazon, Azure, or Google had that get passed by the government, right? Collision attacks, when two files have the same hash, known as collision. An attempt is to find two input strings have a function that produces the same hash function. Birthday paradox, which says that to be in a 50% chance that someone in a given room shares a birthday with 253 people in the room or not. Right. So if there's 253 people in the room, yeah, probably two people that has the same birthday. So cryptography should be used to secure data in transit, data at rest, and when possible, data in use. Right. So when you move data, save data, process data, you should be encrypting it because we know bad guys out there. We know bad guys are going to get in. We know bad guys are going to steal a phone. So if the bad guys steal it, but they don't have the keys, it's useless for them. These include individual files, database, removable media, data on mobile devices. Cryptography can be applied through software or hardware. File and system cryptography, encryption software can be used. These are the pretty good privacy, PGP, widely used as asymmetric cryptography program. Little pricey, but not bad. A lot of government agencies I know use this product. So used for file system in Windows. The open source version of that is GNU GPG. That's pretty good. It's actually approved by the government. So a lot of times when I handle my smaller clients or less frugal clients or clients with no money, we'll get the GPG out. And right, and the cool thing is the PGP that corporations use can read the GBG file. All right, so the difference is PGP is much easier to use than GPG, right? So you kind of get what you pay for. So an operating system, Microsoft encrypted file system, that's kind of old. Using NTFS file system, tightly integrated with the file system. Encryption and decryption are transparent to the user. FDE, protection of the file locker. I'm a huge BitLocker fan. Encryption entire file system from the Windows registry, right? So if you're using, especially if you're using laptops, somebody could steal your hard drive, but you definitely want to use that BitLocker. BitLocker is definitely the 800-pound gorilla in there. Software encryption can be used to attack or exploit vulnerabilities. Cryptography can be embedded in hardware, provides high degree of security, can be applied to USB devices, standard hard drives. Hardware encryption options include trusted platform module or hardware security module. USB device encryption. We buy a lot of USB encrypted devices, meaning there's password, meaning you can actually track them online. They are pricey, but from a government responsibility, is super nice. Encryption, flash drive will not connect to the computer until a correct password is used. All data is copied to the drive. Is automatically encrypted. Tamper resistant. Administrator can remotely control and track activities on the device. Self-encrypting drives or hard drives, protected all files stored on them. The drive and host device perform authentication before initially firing up. If authentication fails, the drives can be figured to deny access. Right, so there's settings on your Windows drives where you can set them up where if you don't have the password, of course, you can't log in and those files won't boot. You can actually have after 3 times it actually erase that drive for you. Trusted platform, like we talked about earlier, chip on a computer motherboard that provides cryptographic services, includes a true random number generator, entirely done in hardware, so it cannot be subject to software attacks, prevents computer from booting if files or data has been altered, prompts for password if moved to a new computer. Right, so that's the chip. The hardware security modules, the secure cryptographic processor, includes an onboard key generator and key storage facility, performs accelerated systematic and asymmetric encryption, can provide services for multiple devices over LAN. So that's why your encryption is not as slow, right? There's multiple techniques to make that go quicker. So this is just the summary of these two. So let's do one thing real quick. So if we go Qualsys Labs, there's an open source product called Qualsys, and it'll take check the encryption on your web server. I got I did Panera Bread about 3 years ago. Their website sucked, so let's see if it's gonna get any better. We just going to check the Ciphers on this web server real quick and just look at the handshakes and what that looks like. If y'all got any questions, it's probably going to be the last thing. We're going to wrap it up. Throw your questions in the box. I appreciate everybody for joining. I think I'm going to do Sundays at 3, probably until real football start. But we'll see. It seems like y'all enjoyed the time. Once again, put anything in the chat. My Gmail account is ProfessorBlackOps. You can actually go on my YouTube channel to community tab. My actual email's in there. It's ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com. So if you want to shoot me an email, if you want to chop something up. 9 times out of 10, I usually don't charge people. So if you want to talk about something, the only thing is, let's do it online so we can get some users learning from everybody and picking up for everybody. So it's almost done. It's at 95%. Okay, they actually fixed their website. So let's walk through it real quick. So summary, they got an A. Look at the 4 big things we talk about. Certificate strength, protocol support, key exchange, and cipher strength. Right? All those things. So to do business with the federal government, any people I work for, you got to have an A when you do a qual-sit scan, right? So we talked about the RSA 2048, the SHA-256, right, which was signing the hash of the file. You can look at that. It's got the common names, the ulterior names. It's got the serial number. It's got the key. It's got the certificate. If the certificate's valid, meaning you can generate your own certificates, right? But they're not valid to the internet. So once again, the certificate's proved. They got it from GeoTrust, which is a big thing. Once again, RSA 256. Then here, TLS, anything TLS 1110, SL3 and 2, all those been compromised and vulnerable, right? So TLS 11 and 13, when you talk about key on your browser, we know those are secure. So it talks TLS, everything in green is cool. It shows you the orange, which those are weak ciphers, right? That's why they didn't get an A+. So if the last time I did them, though, hell, a year ago, they actually, I think, if you look through my catalog, I think they got like a D. So this shows you the weak ciphers. I would actually take those off of the web server so they couldn't negotiate. So it's TLS, RSA, AS 256, 128. I think the CBC for the forward secrecy is why it's weak. So, but yeah, we're just hitting it through. So this shows you all the handshakes. It went through Android, Chrome, IE, Edge, Java. So it shows you some of the known attacks: Beast Attack, Poodle, Zombie, Golden, OpenSSL. Let's see, the other bad thing is, and if we look at the bottom around miscellaneous, this would be the last thing. I have my facts. Is if you look at HTTP server signature, it says Apache 2.4.46 Unix. So now I can type CVE Apache and that ID and that version number. Now I can see what things I can use to attack that web server. That looks like the newest one, but the last time I did something with them, they were actually 10 versions behind. But you should never tell the internet of the world Apache 246 right now. Now I know you're using Linux. Now I know you're using Apache. I know that's your web server. Now I can start attacking you, right? I can start doing research. Okay, Apache. Okay, now what version of Unix is that version of Unix have vulnerabilities, right? So those are some of the things. Just walking through a quick vulnerability scan, talking about encryption at the top. So that's it for me, fellas. I think I'm gonna shut it out unless somebody throws something in the chat box. We're gonna do it again next Sunday at 3:50. Shoot me an email if you want to go over something different or you want to ask something. And as we go through it, I can always pivot if somebody has a specific questions. Thanks for coming out, Professor Black Ops. Please subscribe. Thanks, Savage. Appreciate that, man. Thanks, Easy. Appreciate it.